Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Tutoring YouTube channel. My name is TL, and I'm going to do something a little bit different than what I usually do. I usually make videos on SAT Math, but today I'm just going to go over some grammar and probably make some more reading stuff over the next couple weeks. So I'm going to put this passage into the description so you guys can take a look, but I'm just going to go through the questions, and if you have any questions, feel free to write them in the comments below. Also, before we begin, I just wanted to introduce Kara Tutoring. We are a student-run organization that helps you achieve your dream score, whether it's SAT, ACT, AP, IB, or general high school topics. Feel free to sign up using the link in the description. Alright, so let's begin. So which choice best maintains the sentence pattern already established in the paragraph? So let's look at that part. To alleviate rush hour traffic jams in a congested downtown area, stoplight timing is coordinated. But let's see what the previous sentences say. So, a subway system is expanded to provide service. A bike sharing program is adopted to encourage non-motorized transportation. So, the first part of the sentence, we are actually naming the thing that we're doing, and then we're explaining what it's for in the second part of the sentence. So, let's see the answer choices to see if there's anything like that. Coordinating stoplight timing can help alleviate rush hour traffic jams in a congested downtown area. Alright, that's pretty close, but I'm just going to save it for later. Stoplight timing is coordinated to alleviate rush hour traffic jams in a congested downtown area. So that's probably more correct than B because this is exactly the format that we had in the last two sentences. We name what we do and then we name the purpose of that action. In a congested downtown area, stoplight timing is coordinated to relieve rush hour traffic jams. All right. So I'm thinking it's going to be C, just because the order of things that we had before, we had the naming of the action, and then we had an explanation or the effects of that action. So I would say that choice C most closely matches this. So I'm just going to choose choice C. Okay, so 2 is one of those questions where you actually have to look at the passage for some context. So let's take a look. When any one of these changes occur, it is likely the result of careful analysis conducted by transportation planners. Okay, so here the first thing I can see is the form occur. It doesn't end in an S. So when we have singular objects, then we also need to have a verb that ends in an S. So that's one thing I need to look for. And if we're talking about one thing, then this is correct. It is. So let's look at the answer choices. So they are, those are wrong. And then we said that the form of the verb was incorrect, so A is also going to be incorrect. And then 3 is one of those context questions, so let me just scroll up. Okay, so looking at the beginning of the second paragraph, what we have is verbs in the present tense. So evaluating, assessing, improving. So we want to match the same structure for number 3. So let's look at the answer choices. And the first thing I see is designing, and that matches everything. So this ing, it's the same present form for all of these. So that will just help with the parallel structure of the passage. So that's why I chose C. Everything else. Which choice results in the most effective transition to the information that follows in the paragraph? So let's look at number 4. Most transportation planners work in or near cities, but some are employed in rural areas. Say, for example, a large factory is built on the outskirts of town. So that's the connection to rural areas. So I think that's pretty important. Traffic to and from that location would increase at the beginning and end of work shifts. No change is pretty good. I like that sentence already because you can already see the connection of rural area and the factory on the outskirts. So I'm just going to leave that. Where job opportunities are more plentiful. Well, we just transitioned to the outskirts of town, so we're not going to use that. And the majority are employed by government agencies. There's no mention of that. And D, I would say this is pretty important because without mentioning rural areas, the transition to the factory on the outskirts of town would seem kind of random. So I'm just going to go with A just because it helps set up the context for the next sentence. And 5, I gotta look in the passage, so let's take a look. The transportation planner's job might involve, okay, so this comma right here, it breaks up the sentence. You don't want to have a noun and a verb broken apart by a comma, so I'm just going to remove that. And everything else looks good. There is a possessive because that's his job or his or her job or their job. So yeah, I'm just going to leave everything else. Let's see if there's a choice like that. All right, so the first one is exactly that. There's no comma. C, there's a comma there. And D, there has to be a possessive form of the noun because that's his, her, their job. So yeah, and then no change is wrong because of the comma. So number 6, let's take a look. If analysis of the traffic count indicates that there is more traffic than the current road as it is designed at the time. So I already see a repetitive sentence. Current road as it is designed. So I feel like that could be simplified a little bit more. That's like a more complex way of saying the current design of the road. But let's take a look at the answer choices. Oh, and there it is, current design of the road. So let's just stick with that one. Road as it is now currently designed. These two are repetitive, so you don't want to have two repetitive words. So current and right now are also the same thing. And this one is just too complicated. You could just say current design of the road and it will be the same thing, and it's much simpler. So let's go to number 7. Transportation planners work closely with a number of community stakeholders such as government officials and other interested organizations and individuals. I usually like to ignore whatever they have there, so let's see. Representatives from the local public health department might provide input in designing a network of trails and sidewalks to encourage people to walk more. So I feel like that's more of an example of that. So let's see. We have next. Okay, that's all right, but I feel like this 7th sentence is really just expanding on the idea of the previous sentence or the sentence before it. So let's take a look. Okay, so similarly, D, there's nothing to compare it to. We didn't name an instance of it already, so D is going to be wrong. Furthermore, okay, that's all right. I just wouldn't use it because the second sentence is more of an example of the first one, so it expands off the second idea. And B says for instance, which is pretty much for example. It's another way of saying it, so I'm going to stick with B. Furthermore would expand on a point, but in this case we're providing an example, so we want to say for example, for instance, and stuff like that. Next wouldn't be used because we're talking about the same thing, but we're just giving examples, so A would be wrong also. The writer is considering deleting the underlined sentence. Should the sentence be kept or deleted? So let's take a look at the sentence. According to the American Heart Association, walking provides numerous benefits related to health and well-being. Okay, so let's see the sentence before that. We were talking about representatives from the public health department, but we're still on the idea of transportation. So this little factoid about walking is actually distracting towards the main message of the paragraph, which is how transport planners collaborate with other people in order to make things happen. All right. So let's look at the answer choices. I don't think so, but I'm just going to keep an eye for those answer choices. Deleted because it blurs the paragraph's focus on the community stakeholders with whom transportation planners work. That's pretty much true. Because as I said before, this is pretty much talking about how transportation planners collaborate with other government officials. So providing that factoid doesn't really add to that conversation. If it doesn't add to it, might as well just remove it because it will distract the reader from the main message. So number 9, let's look at the text. People who pursue careers in transportation planning have a wide variety of educational backgrounds. That seems pretty good to me, but let's look at the answer choices. All right, so here we have a comma right away, so that's wrong. It breaks apart the sentence, and we haven't even expanded on an idea yet, and we're just cutting it off with a comma, which is not good. And then same thing here. It's in the middle of the sentence. We haven't fully developed the first idea yet that we can separate with a comma. People who pursue careers in transport planning, and then let's see what comes right after that. Okay, they have. So if we put a comma here, then people who pursue careers in transportation planning have. Okay, so you wouldn't want to break that apart because, as I said before, you haven't developed the first idea yet, and this would just break it apart. So putting that comma there would not be good because you're interrupting the discussion about people pursuing careers in transportation planning, having a wide variety of educational backgrounds, and you're just saying people who pursue careers in transportation planning, and then have a wide variety of educational backgrounds. You want to combine those into one sentence, and you don't want to break the flow of that. So that's why we don't put the comma there. So A would be correct. So now let's look at 10. Most jobs, however, require at least a bachelor's degree. Majors of transportation planners are varied, including fields such as urban studies. I think this is pretty good. Here we're just mentioning the different majors of transportation planners, but this transition is very good already. So let's see what are the answer choices. Varied and including. Okay, we don't need the and there because including is already indicating that we're describing what majors that they have next. And which include? No, that's just too complicated. And which is going to be extra words that we don't need. Varied, which include. Okay, so we could just do away with all this which and because we just need to focus on the majors. So We don't need extra words that add on to a sentence just in this transition alone, right? So including works perfectly fine. Which choice completes the sentence with accurate data based on a graph? Okay, let's see the data. So it says that urban and regional planners percent increase in employment. Okay, so it seems that urban and regional planners will increase by 16% in employment. So let's see. Projecting that 16% of new jobs, no, that's wrong. It's going to be employment. So there would be 16% more urban and regional planners. So let's take a look. So we already saw that A was incorrect because it's not referring to new jobs, but instead referring to how many urban and regional planners are hired. It will slow to 14%? No, as we saw in the graph, it's going to be 16%, indicating that 14 to 18% of urban and regional planning positions will remain unfilled. So that's referring to unemployment. The graph referred to employment, so that's wrong. Predicting that employment of urban and regional planners will increase 16% between 2010 and 2020. That's going to be the correct answer because employment refers to hiring, and there will be 16% more urban and regional planners hired, as said by the graph. So that wraps up this video. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below. Also, if you're interested in becoming a tutor or receiving tutoring from Care Tutoring, feel free to use the link in the description and fill out the form. See you guys in the next video.